No, I'm legally not allowed to edit, so no mistakes. We must be perfect. It's
Doesn't
like
make
an
me
FC.
nervous or anything.
Yeah, I don't want you to be nervous. Just really be careful everything you say because I will. I'm not allowed to edit FCC regulations or something. I like to make stuff up. So, anyways, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Qumulex Radio. We took a whole month off. Aaron would not let us record for an entire month. I had to really work hard to get Aaron to approve the next episode, but we're so excited to be back. And we were all just discussing how we must be getting older because we're still tired from that amazing ISC West show. But we have a super awesome guest here today. We have Nathan Vank from IronYun. Do I pronounce that right? I always ask on this show because
Yeah,
everybody has a name I say wrong. Is that right?
you nailed it. Yes,
I
absolutely.
nailed it.
Iron.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Excited to be here. Excited. Oh, so I'm already messing
No, we're
this thing
good.
up.
Like CNN Crossfire, just right before dusk. I have my mechanic shop that I use is called Blagoy's, and so they always compliment me with the only one that could say it right. But then anything related to my own industry, I feel like I just can never pronounce anything right. So I'm always very self-conscious about that. So thank you for making me feel better, Nathan, and thank you for being our guest, our first guest from the big show. And with IronYun, just in case anybody's maybe new or maybe anybody out there that hasn't heard of you before, what would be like a nice little elevator pitch description about what IronYun does?
Yeah. So IronYun is an AI firm, and our goal is to make the most complete AI vision system in the world. Anything that you can see, our AI can see, and the whole goal of that is to solve real world problems. So there's a ton of security applications, life safety, and there's a whole world that can be used with vision AI.
No, that's great. So analytics are a big conversation these days, and it seems like the adoption of analytics has just skyrocketed over recent years. If those of us that have been around a long time, if we think back like 10 or maybe 15 years back, analytics were coming along and there was a lot of discussion about it and it all looked really cool, but it wasn't going anywhere. Now all of a sudden it feels like it's changed. So what do you think has caused analytics to be so more readily adopted now?
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Just myself personally, I've been selling AI for about 10 years and it's night and day difference than it was back then. It's actually a funny story. Know that I was coming on this pod and I was thinking about those early days. And that's when I first ran into Qumulex actually, was about 10 years ago. I know that the team was running around and talking about the cloud and I was pitching a similar idea, cloud and AI, cloud and I guess I was in the Midwest and people were calling all of us Chicken Little at the time. And now you look at the show today in 2024, and every single booth at the show says AI or says cloud. And
Right.
it's really coming into the mainstream. So, yeah, just focusing on the AI piece of it. Yeah, 10 years ago, um, you know, very expensive to roll out these applications, and the applications themselves were very limited. At the time, we were trying to do person detection versus just motion, and detecting a person accurately was unheard of. It was worse than motion detection. Using AI was very expensive, and it could go haywire real quickly. It could go sideways, and the real world is very messy. We quickly learned that it's not so simple. You're not just in a dorm room building this AI and it can detect two people. You're out in the real world and it rains, it snows,
Mhm.
there's lights out, there's terrible cameras out there too with sun flares on them, and um, all of that has to be corrected and thought about and built out. And there's been companies like IronYun that have been at this for over a decade, just chipping away at it and making these applications foolproof. And now just the affordability of the analytics, the
Mhm.
availability of the analytics is just everywhere. You can put these down into a camera itself. I think last year's show, you saw the first generation of these AI cameras where the hardware has a little GPU on it to run AI, and those are only going to get more and more powerful. So, yeah, I think people realize that this is not a concept, this is not a fad. And I'd say about a year or two ago, ChatGPT in Silicon Valley sort of announced that they have their version 3.5, and that one really went mainstream. It was one of the fastest growing commercial consumer products.
Mhm.
There's over 100 million people that adopted it in a record time. And I think that really helped AI go mainstream. You have companies that are their IT teams, just like they were told years ago, figure out a roadmap for the cloud. They're now getting told to figure out a roadmap for AI. And you need to figure it out. They may not know what that means for their company, but they know that they're going to get left behind if they don't incorporate AI. So we're getting this huge outreach of companies in the Fortune 500, down to even mom and pops, just figuring out, hey, how can we use AI? How can we leverage this to make our business more competitive? And I think that's where everyone's mindset is right now. They know it's real. They know that their competitors are looking at it, and they're trying to figure out how they could adopt these solutions too. So that was a long-winded way to go get a drink of water, but hopefully that helps out. I think it's just the affordability and just it's everywhere now.
Yeah, so more accurate, more available, more options, more affordable, all these things kind of coming together. And like you mentioned, I think, there's a huge awareness of AI. I think ChatGPT was a huge part of that. And of course, one way people are thinking about AI is the fact that, your analytics and the way that they use neural networks and so forth to, recognize objects, make these calculations, make these observations in real time. But another way that people have really begun to think about AI is just that whole chat GPT approach to essentially having a conversation with the interface to find out what you need to know, which is great because I'm not very literate. So if I can just talk to my computer, it's really helped me out. I happen to be an OpenAI subscriber. You may even see some of the images in our social posts, where I actually find that, working with DALL-E, I get a much better image than what I can get elsewhere just by coaching it and prompt engineering it and getting what I want. And so me as a consumer now, I'm starting to desire that, in more places. And recently you kind of debuted in a webinar and then really in real time at the show at ISC West, you've kind of broke new ground for the industry, right? I think you've released the first instance of that.
That's right. Yeah, we've incorporated our own large language model into the product to work with our video, the large video models. And this is making it really user friendly. A lot of the feedback that we've gotten over the years, I'd say from time to time, but enough where you see a reoccurring theme is maybe the product isn't as user friendly as it could be, in the sense that if you could just speak to the AI and just chat with it and get what you're looking for, that's the easiest. Right now, there was buttons that needed to be clicked. You needed to know your way around the product and got comfortable with it, but that's not really helpful for you say a police officer, somebody on the fly that really needs to use it. It's their first time really paying attention to it, and they have to learn how to navigate it. That could cause a lot of issues. So incorporating this natural language search really removes all the barriers to entry. You don't have to learn the product. You could talk to it. At the show, there's a lot of people even trying to game the system and try to, play games with it and say, find me this or that to try to trick it. And people were even talking in slang, and it was still pulling up what they were looking for. Somebody made a DMX reference. He said, "Where are my dogs at?" And then it just showed every single Labrador and poodle that was there, and it knew exactly what he was talking about. So, you can't get it wrong. So if you're looking for a dog or you're looking for a car, you could just tell it like it is, and it's going to bring those results up. So I think that's a huge advance for the industry. I think the more that other companies can incorporate this, it's just going to make usability just through the roof.
No, I love it. So two things I really liked about what you said. First is any DMX reference makes me still feel relevant as a human because the 90s feel like yesterday because that was my youth.
Yes,
so I want it back. May he rest in peace. Good man. Good man. I like him. The second thing is I think, when I put my product manager hat on, there's always kind of this back and forth about, where you kind of have to ride a line where customers want more capability, more features, and more sophistication with their solution without the complication. And that's what happens, right? So you want all these analytics, you want all these features, you want all these capabilities, a lot more checkboxes and things that you need to learn and think about, and maybe how different features may interact with each other. And to me, it almost feels like this is something that's really going to take off industry wide, I believe, because, not just with the AI analytics, but just in general, using the system, how amazing it would be for a customer that we can make these systems just as sophisticated as possible, yet they can just have a conversation with it to get what they need, and not have to learn all these various bits and bytes about how things work, but just to talk to it and then get what you need. I mean, I think there's a huge opportunity there for this industry to make life easier.
Absolutely. And I think that's sort of where it's headed now is partners know, our resellers and VARs, our channels know that people are asking for this. They're trying to get up to speed and offer this. They know it's fairly complicated, and this is kind of, or it has been historically, and this is the same situation with um, cameras or video management systems or access controls. When they're first coming out, you know that there's the value there, but there's a lot of nuances you need to learn. There's interoperability between systems, and there's a lot of confusion there. These cameras don't work with this VMS, or this access control doesn't work with these cameras. And I think partners start to learn a handful of products, get really comfortable with them, and standardize on a product. And I think you have to standardize on an AI. I think this is the fourth component of your lineup. People standardize on cameras, a video management system, access control, and you should really think of AI as the fourth component that you need to standardize on instead of just having it with your other features. You could think of it as its own standalone and think about the cameras that it works with, the VMS that it works with, get comfortable with that. And then the best way to really learn it is just to start deploying it and getting comfortable with it that way, and it'll be monkey business in no time. Just like
Yeah.
IP was very difficult for many, but now everyone knows it like the back of their hand. It's a learning curve there, but yeah, this is quickly going to be its own category.
Yeah. I mean, I could see in some number of years, I'm scared to take a guess and frighten our engineers, but I think it's somewhere in the visible horizon. I think this is going to go from being something that was very exciting and differentiating. I mean, you guys had several trophies sitting there on your table when we recorded that video, and well earned.
Thank you.
Absolutely great product, and it's always awesome to go to the moon first, but you can kind of hear all the rockets firing up. I think there's more more people on their way to the moon now, and
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah,
that's the
we
way we're going. And I think it's again, I think it's just, for me, it's like the possibility of just continuing to layer on additional sophistication to these systems, with the advancements in AI and all these capabilities. I think we can all see are kind of growing monthly, quarterly. I mean, just all the capabilities out there, whether it's the compute, whether it's the algorithms. Um, we could be simultaneously now making things where in the past it would have been super hard. So maybe that's too much at once, but we can almost, really, I think we're going to hit a spot where we're going to hit like a really big development cycle in the next few years, is kind of what I see just across the board as an industry, Qumulex, IronYun, everybody. And I think that's like a net benefit for the end user, right? I mean, because one of the things we like about the analytics now, no matter where they're coming from, is, it makes it more of like a proactive solution versus the old days where, you're going back to check the video. Something's already happened. Gee, I hope we can catch who did it. Versus now, in real time, we can get alerts, whether it's somebody that may be an active shooter, or, Josh is at the buffet again and we need him to, slow down. There was a 2-trip minimum. I mean, there's so many things we can do.
absolutely. And I think that's where it's not a far leap from the way that the industry is already doing things. We're already positioning cameras to be ready for that active shooter situation you're talking about, to be ready for these break-ins, to be there for operational use, to count people coming in and out. So the cameras are already being positioned this way. Like the industry is already thinking of these concerns. And then the AI is, like you mentioned, it's just that proactive layer that can just monitor for that 24/7. And
Yeah.
it's what everyone's already looking for. So it's an easy upsell at that point.
Yeah. So something that's interesting to me, I feel like, and we've had this discussion here basically in other examples, maybe not so much with AI analytics, but there's always this discussion about edge processing, or local centralized processing versus cloud processing, and all the advantages of that. I saw a really interesting article on IPVM that was talking about one of our really good competitors, and it was Genetech, and it was a really open conversation. I thought that was a really wonderful interview. I appreciated him doing that. And he talked about, of course, Genetech works with very large customers at a very large scale. That's kind of their sweet spot. And, he mentioned that there seems to be a limit to how much true cloud analytics that you would want to do with a very, very large system. And I noticed, there's this real trend, and I think it was really obvious at ISC West as you go around. There's also a lot of work being done, not just for the cloud processing, but now we're seeing huge advancements with local GPU processing and so forth locally. I mean, from your perspective, because you do an amount of local processing, but of course we're also working with you on an integration where we're focused on cloud processing. So you're pretty flexible like we are, working locally and cloud. I mean,
Well,
I don't know. Part of me thinks, are we working towards a future where everyone is truly hybrid and that is where you're going to get the most horsepower for your money? Or where do you think this is all going to go?
sure. So yeah, if the processing, the logic for this AI, it could be done on the camera itself in a GPU there. It could be done at a GPU at a computer locally, or it could be done in a GPU off premise and in a hyperscaler and a public cloud provider. It could be in any of these places, and I think it depends on the end user. It depends on the integrator, if they're offering a managed service, if they are um, wanting this on-prem, or if they want to offer this in the cloud. If the customer already has a cloud environment, then you could just put this into their environment. So the answer to that is, I think hybrid is probably the way to go for the future. I think the concern you see, and Qumulex is way ahead of this. Qumulex was being built out for the cloud originally. I think you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing a lot of legacy systems out there trying to migrate to the cloud, but you kind of have to be built for the cloud from the jump. You have to be thinking about hybrid from the get-go. These systems
Yeah.
were built for on-premise. You try to put them in the cloud, and it's going to be thousands of dollars a month per camera. The efficiencies aren't there. The economics for the cloud are not there. So I think, yeah, a lot of companies are going to struggle to make the jump into the cloud. But yeah, companies like Qumulex that are positioning to be hybrid, and you could go into any one of those situations. I think that's how tactical that a partner is going to need to be. They're going to need to have those options, that flexibility. There isn't going to be a one size fit all for anyone. There's going to be plenty of
Yeah.
mission critical workloads that will probably never make it out to the cloud. Those will always have to be on site. So yeah, it's going to be a mix of everything.
Thought that was interesting because, in that article, the gentleman from Genetech, I forget his name, but again, I really love the way he answered the questions. I thought that was a really excellent interview with IPVM. And, he was throwing out examples of like customers that have, 20,000 cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that, when you start having that kind of bandwidth that you need to send up to the cloud, analyze and send back, that there's a breaking point somewhere, where doing everything in the cloud seems to be a challenge. And I think that's what's interesting for us. Like you said, I mean, we we started off from the beginning not just being cloud focused, but feeling okay, hybrid is the way for many different reasons. But I kind of feel like there's always been a lot of debate about that, and I think it's always been great debate that I've enjoyed. But I do kind of feel this sense that as an industry, I kind of see it in IT too. If you follow any of the IT publications and follow that industry, I mean, there's been kind of a real movement over the last 5 years towards hybrid again, and
Mm-hmm.
saying, okay, there's the cloud's great, and this is great for so many reasons, but there's an amount of local that maybe we need to look at for processing or potentially for storage. And I feel like everybody's kind of narrowing into this hybrid. And it's just interesting, feels like
Yeah,
you're seeing that too.
definitely. Yeah, the approach that we're seeing now, it's almost all multi-cloud. You have on-premise server farms, you have a couple of providers, not just one that you standardize on. And I think most IT teams now, they have a couple of cloud providers and they still have that
Yeah.
on-prem option. So yeah, it's good to have hybrid and do both. But yeah, I would argue the opposite point. I think once you start to scale and you're talking about 20,000 cameras,
Hmm.
that's where the cloud becomes really advantageous. So I would take
Yeah.
the opposite approach from the person from Genetech.
Yeah,
I would
that's
say
fair.
once you start
Uh,
to scale, the cloud becomes the way to do it.
I used to be very involved with structured cabling and outside plant networks as well, both indoor and outdoor. And I remember 15 years ago, some of the advancements like low water peak single mode fiber, where there was not that breaking point that would kind of choke you on bandwidth, where it was almost single mode has become like bandwidth unlimited.
Mm.
And it's just a matter of the distance between the points of presence, and the quality of the equipment, the advancement of the equipment. So, they were talking 40 gig cabinet to cabinet in data centers, 10, 15 years ago. I mean, I feel like we're going to start getting to a point where maybe we're going to put a T in front of some of these speeds, in the next decade. And then maybe, bandwidth may be less of an issue, certainly in areas that have access to that quality fiber.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, the bandwidth, this recently to 5G and the internet speeds to come. I think there's always kind of a bandwidth limit. If the cameras will become more powerful or the
Yeah.
resolution doubles, and you're always kind of making the most of the bandwidth. That just allows for more things to be possible, and then we quickly hit the bandwidth
Yeah.
peaks there. But yeah, it's this constant back and forth.
Yeah, I think those advancements leads to more that we can do in the cloud. I mean, 20 years ago, sadly, I was already an adult 20 years ago, but I remember broadband. It was just amazing that you didn't have to hear the modem dial, and 100 megabit. That's wild. I mean, it's just these things are going to keep getting better, and I think some of those concerns. Just trying to agree with you in a technical way. Just say,
Yeah, well,
I think some of those bandwidth challenges are going to go away and continue to get better and better.
absolutely. I mean, 10 years ago, like we are saying earlier, trying to sell the cloud idea, there were partners that literally could not sell the cloud because of physical limitations. The bandwidth would not allow the camera to go out of the network. One camera would break the whole network. So we've come a long time since then, and I think that trend is just continuing to make the cloud more economical and more viable. And we're kind of at a sweet spot right now, and I think the next several years look really great for that market.
No, I like it. So I know you have a tight schedule today. I don't want to take too much of your time, but before we go, I wanted to just get your feeling. I mean, this is kind of our maiden voyage since coming back. I almost should call it season 2, but I won't. I
Okay.
won't do that. That's too pompous. This is still season 1. It will always be.
Season 2, episode
Yeah,
1, largest
long
security
break.
podcast in the world. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I love it. But we had a month off, so we're getting back, and I mean, we're still kind of thinking about that show. I mean, to me, um, certainly since COVID, and I'm trying to think before COVID, what was a bigger, busier show? I mean, that show was incredible.
Yeah, it was the busiest one I had ever been at. And it seems like it's coming back in full force and
Yeah,
yeah, bigger than ever and more exciting than ever too. The categories that they have, the products that are out there. I mean, I think I was caught by surprise so many times walking by booths, and the ISC West is so awesome because of that. That's when everyone, you timing this as season 2 is kind of perfect. That's how I
yeah,
like to think of ISC West is really the start of the new season. The weeks leading up to it are sort of like the preseason
yeah,
of the new year. And you get to see what everyone's been building the past 12 months, what
yeah.
they've been putting together. That's the day where they show it off to the whole world. So you can't get more exciting than that.
No, I think it was great to see. Like, it made me feel good about the health of the industry. And not only that, I think there was a kind of a return to seeing a lot of end users on the floor, a lot of integrators on the floor. So that was really great to see that everybody was coming. But I mean, aside from how busy it was, and for anybody that watched any of the videos, I was making my way around to IronYun and all the different booths and doing videos with our friends and partners. And it was just darn hard for me to get where I was going. So, I mean, but I was hearing some of these key discussions like, edge versus cloud, AI, people asking about, are you going to have a ChatGPT search? Are you going to have and people talking about it. And I mean, this was really the first show, at least for me, since COVID, where I felt like I learned a lot and saw a lot of new development and new ideas and new products that were being shown and discussed. I mean, it was made me very optimistic, for the future of the industry, seeing all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's kind of nice to point out is with cloud and AI, normally there's sometimes a negative connotation that comes with it, but I think you saw it there. The cloud and AI, it's opening more opportunity than ever before, and this is one of the best times to be in the security industry. It's going to be a very prosperous time. There's a
Yeah.
ton of opportunity, and I hope everyone sees that and takes advantage of it.
They used to do this joke on Saturday Night Live where there was a singer from Fleetwood Mac that would always be invited but never speak. I feel like I just did that to Aaron again.
No, it's all
It
good.
was just
You were flying so fast with the questions. I was just letting it eat, till the end.
It was all pent up, man. It was the month-long break.
yeah. And we'll get all of the listeners that just come for air, and they're going to be holding out all the way to the end here. So this is good.
Yeah.
Keep them on
I
the
apologize,
stream.
Nathan. I probably ruined all of our visibility for this episode. Everybody shows up for lots of Aaron. They didn't get enough Aaron this time. We'll do
Sorry.
better next time. Anything you'd like to add or ask about Aaron before we go?
Yeah,
Now
I'm
that I
just curious, now that we have, analytics expert on the line here. So I'm starting to see a lot more RFPs come out that have, a subsection for analytics and capabilities. And what I'm kind of seeing, from a market trend perspective is, yeah, exactly like you said, coming out of the show, we're seeing a lot more edge-based analytics at the camera level. Like, what would be your opinion? Like what is almost, if you could give me your sales pitch. I know that it's two kind of parallel technologies, but they both do, what I would say completely different things. What would be kind of like your sales pitch against, like an edge-based analytics versus what IronYun offers?
No, I would say they both come in handy when it's needed. Edge is very strategic. Edge, I wouldn't say it's needed for mass deployment or you'd run all of your AI on the edge instead of central. But where it becomes a big help is remote locations or the standalone locations, or yeah, let's say a remote location where you could have a camera on a pole with the AI running on it, looking for that person. You don't have to have that stream over the network back to a location and go back. Network may be shoddy in the first place. So to make sure that the AI is right there processing with no issues and it could grab that event and ship it back to the main unit, I think that's where it becomes really advantageous. So I don't think it's an either or. And I think our partners should have both in their toolbox.
Gotcha. What would you describe,
Awesome.
what IronYun can do with its cloud capability? Would you describe it as a more superior analytic because of the
Oh,
capabilities, all the different events that can be generated from, you
well, yeah,
know,
so I guess that's to kind of clear up the confusion. Our AI can go on the edge also. So you have hardware manufacturer putting a little GPU on the camera. We could swap out sort of the stock AI for aftermarket AI. So we could put our AI on a camera as well. The difference is it's going to be fairly limited. There's only so much processing power. It's a matter of physics. There's only so much you can do. So you're limited to one or two applications. At a central unit, you're limited to the hardware resources there. And then in the cloud, you kind of have no limit to the
mhm,
amount of processing power that you have. So it's just a matter of, yeah, I guess limiting the processing power. You limit the
sure.
logic and what you can do. So if you're only trying to do a couple of things on the camera itself, then putting the AI on the camera may be a way to do it.
Absolutely. I am starting to see a hard limit as to how many apps can be on a particular camera and ultimately limiting its capabilities. So yeah, that kind of makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
You look at some
Absolutely.
of what like iPro's doing, for example. I mean, they're putting incredible processing
Mhm,
capability on their cameras, so that may open the door for you. In some of those cases, anyone that's doing that and focused on those really higher level processing cameras or introducing containerization. You may
Yes.
be able to run a lot more of your products on those cameras in the near future too.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see like the same sort of Moore's law where processing power doubles. You're going to see that with camera manufacturers too. They're already doing the second generation of these AI cameras. They're almost double the power. And over the next
Yeah.
few years, I imagine the processing power is going to double. So instead of one application, maybe you could have two in the next year. A few years from now, you could run a suite of analytics right there on the edge. So I think that's definitely where it's headed.
Anything else, Aaron?
no, no, I in
You've
the
been
sake
talking
of
the whole show.
it's
You're hogging up all the airtime.
all good, man.
Teasing. Just teasing. Well, guys, this was awesome. And congratulations on, you know, you looked great at the show. Congratulations on the awards. They were very, very well earned. Very excited to see what you've done there. And always feels good when you're a part of something where you're kind of leading the path.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's someone's got to do it. So I guess yeah, we'll keep hacking away
Yeah.
at it, and if it's us, then so be it. But yeah, this is what we love to do. We're passionate about it, and it feels like this is just the beginning, and what's to come over the next several years is really exciting. We don't want to slow down until it's all out there. So we appreciate Qumulex being a dear partner of ours. I know there's some exciting news coming out later this year, and
Yeah,
maybe we'll have to come back and do another pod during that time.
I think we will. We'll have some great things to talk about here later in the year. But in the meantime, if it's all right, I'll put your maybe your email address in the description. So if anybody's interested in kind of getting some information now, they could reach out and talk to you. And then later this year, we'll have something going together that we'll
Awesome.
be able to
That'd
talk
be
about,
great.
and they come to us for that. So no, that's great. I really appreciate you coming on. Again, congrats on everything that IronYun's doing. Really proud to be associated with you. Really proud to work with Aaron. He's much smarter than me, except for the part where he lets me talk the whole time. You know, we got to work on that. You're supposed to be my seatbelt and protect me from myself. So everybody, thanks for coming. Everybody else, thanks for listening. And be sure to check us out at Qumulex.com. Check out all our social media, LinkedIn and YouTube. We have a lot of great videos like we had with IronYun from the show that are worth checking out. And until next time, this has been Qumulex Radio. Thanks.
Thanks.
Guys.
Bye-bye.